All right, welcome to another episode of Tuesday Talks. How you doing, Dan?
Hey, I'm good, Harris. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It's good.
That's
It's good.
good. That's good. Yeah, we're off to a good start this week. A lot of stuff happening, moving and shaking. so, so tomorrow, tomorrow being the 2nd of March, there is a
Yeah.
big announcement. Well, I mean, it's an announcement that happens quite a few times a year, but tomorrow the anticipation here is that I think most economists are predicting now we're going to see a rate hike.
Yeah.
And that rate hike is going to affect our variable rate mortgages. In fact, there was a recent article on stories. What is it, stories.com? Canada's economy returns to pre-pandemic levels as rate hike looms. So this is the question, Harris. Should we be freaking out over this rate hike? Is it the only thing you think of? Is it keeping you up at night?
Yep. Obviously, the sky is falling, so I gotta be up all night. Make sure I'm not underneath wherever it's falling. So.
Right. Yeah. If you're always underground, though, you'll never see it falling.
That's true too.
So,
So, but yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. There's just a lot of I feel like fear mongering around this stuff. They're like, oh my god, it's like they were so certain that there's gonna be a hike in January, right? And then it gets
yeah.
pushed forward, and then now they're like, oh my god, well you know what? Even though there's like seven more announcements left in the year, they're gonna do 10 hikes and some like obscene stuff, and I don't know. I mean, is this information supposed to be sensational? Is that why people are kind of putting it out there, or do they really believe it? Because I don't believe it for a second.
It's all misinformation.
Fake
MSM,
news.
fake news. Yeah, I don't. I mean, a little bit might be fear mongering. If you actually look at the numbers, and I think one of my videos last week, I broke out um, where I had walked through a scenario with clients, right? And clients of mine had closed. They had a 1.35% variable. That's what it is today. And they reached out and they said, Dan, should we lock in? And their option to lock in on a 5-year fixed was a convertible mortgage, so they could lock in 3.19%. So it's easy. We know how much the mortgage amount was. It was like
Mm,
785,000.
mm,
We have today's rate. We have the rate they could lock it in at, and then we kind of went through a scenario where there was a bunch of rate increases and how that looked. And like essentially, until they got to a point where 1% annually was the rate increase, they were better off staying with a variable rate mortgage and setting their payments as if it was a fixed rate and then just making that additional payment. And it's like self insuring.
yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I think there is some fear mongering here. It's to be expected. Like if we go back to pre pandemic levels, rates were a lot higher. So, is it going to stop anything? Is it going to prevent people from buying? Is it going to slow things down? I don't know. I don't think so. Um, but yeah, it's just something to be aware of. Rates are going up.
Yeah, I mean, when your clients are coming in and asking you whether they should be going for fixed or variable, what are you telling them? Fixed or variable in this climate?
Well, I think in this climate uncertainty, you pay a premium to lock it in, and that premium's pretty large right now. Like it's almost double the rate on a variable. Your penalty is going to be higher because it's an interest rate differential penalty, and you have other options out there. And why would you not take advantage of a lower interest rate right now? And with the
Mm,
amount of increases that have to happen for it to be on par, like let's say it's 1.5% lower, right? That's like six increases. That's a pretty decent amount. And in this market, people are moving all over the place constantly. Like
mm,
I put people in mortgages a year ago, and they're like, "Okay, let's move." They have another opportunity. Let's go somewhere else.
mm,
So most flexibility in a variable. Although that being said, there was an article that I read. HSBC came out with a 7-year fixed mortgage, and a lot of lenders have 7 and 10-year options, right? But I think the 7-year with HSBC is fairly low, like 2.59%.
mm.
So the nice thing is, and I don't know with HSBCs, but um, anyone listening out there that is a mortgage broker, they can correct me. But I think after 5 years, fixed rates, if you have a longer than 5-year term, it converts into a variable rate penalty, meaning that if you get 7 years after you hit the 5-year threshold, you're no longer paying that interest rate differential, the IRD penalty. You're paying a variable rate penalty of 3 months interest. So in that case, if you want to do a 7 or 10 and a 7 year is 2.59, which is lower than your average 3 year, and I think it's for refis, renewals, purchases, might be a good idea.
But wait,
That's a premium I
here,
might be willing to pay.
yeah. But if you were to break that mortgage in year 2, are you paying the differential for the remaining 5, or is it like 3 plus variable?
Harris, that is a wonderful question. One I don't have the answer to, but look, let's see if we can get someone from HSBC on here and let's ask them, because that's a great question. If
Yeah,
you break it, a few years in, you're subject to the IRD penalty.
yeah,
And is that calculated to the end of the term, or is that calculated until it converts into a
yeah.
variable? So, good question to ask, my friend. And I would say for anyone that is considering getting a home for the first time, so I just got off the phone with a client looking to shop, first time home buyer, and not sure what's going on, right? So she
Mm-hmm.
possibly has a partner that she wants to move in with. She's
Wait,
not sure.
did you say it possibly has a partner?
Okay, let me back up, because she has a partner that she could possibly move in with. I'm pretty sure it's a partner. So, yeah, I swear, dyslexic man. So she has a partner.
No, I was
but
just
they're
trying to
not
get
sure if
the
they-
I was just trying to get the
because
client
that's
profile
yeah
right for
those
our listeners, so that like
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, because those are two very different scenarios there. So she does have a partner.
Yeah,
She doesn't live with him, but they're considering maybe down the road she could move in with him. First time home buyer, wants to get more space. Would I put her in a 7 year or a 10 year? Probably not. If that penalty, if she breaks it in a few years, let's say in 2 years,
yeah,
they go to Vegas and he proposes, they get married, and then all of a sudden they get 6 dogs and a cat, and they don't have enough room in the 1 bedroom. They got to get a new place. Well, if there's no portability involved in that mortgage and they have to go somewhere else and it triggers a massive penalty, forces them into bankruptcy, they're out on the streets, living under a bridge, like that's on me,
yeah.
you know? So
It's a lot of pressure. I don't know how you do it sometimes.
and I don't sleep. I
You
tell
gotta,
you
you
that.
gotta, you gotta be
I don't
up all
sleep.
night thinking of the dogs.
Yeah, that and playing Oculus, the Oculus Rift. So you guys, I got an Oculus for my birthday, and it's one of those things where I'm like, it's metaverse virtual reality, but I really got hooked on playing a boxing game. And it's just so much. I can like my arms are like raptor arms right now. I can't even like lift them up. I was playing again last night, and that's what's keeping me up is just immense pain, but satisfaction knowing that I was playing as Adonis Creed, and I was able to beat the campaign. So for anyone out there that might be thinking of challenging me in a brawl in the back streets, I'll bring my Oculus Rift and show you what it's all about.
Show them what you're made of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you played it too, and it was
Yeah,
it was pretty exhausting. It was tiring.
it was. I
Right?
felt it the next morning, man. I was just like, "Whoa, this is too intense for me." But
Yeah, and it gets you like completely like immersed. You're standing in a ring, you're looking around, you've got this like guy just glaring down at you that wants
yeah,
to crush you to the ground. And then my brother was also playing it, but he was more like enamored at the guy's physique. He said, "Wow, look at his shoulder!" Like you got to punch, otherwise you're gonna get punched. So it really surprised me because with Oculus and this type of technology, right? It can be brought into real estate. We talked about this with, virtual showings and appointment bookings. And if you're doing pre-construction, you walk through the development before it's even built. That's kind of cool. Or if you're choosing,
yeah.
I actually have at 1 o'clock a homeowners orientation where they go through everything, but it's interesting to see that technology. And then I don't know if you've heard about the metaverse, and there are actually realtors that have bought up virtual property
Yeah.
and are selling. Like, what's your take on that?
You know what it is? Okay. And I just feel like we've, as a society, right, are beginning to lose it because they're like, oh my God, there's only like limited amount of like virtual real estate. No, by definition, you can create more. It's never gonna
Right.
end. So
Yeah.
how much value does it have? I don't know. Like, like somebody could copy and paste my real estate, It's like
Yeah.
there's no barriers. Everybody, like, it was like, when Bitcoin came out, oh my god, there's only so many coins. No, you can, like, there's so many other offshoots of Bitcoin and all this other stuff. And at the end of the day, it is a speculative asset. It doesn't have any intrinsic value, right? It's
Right.
a
Yeah.
speculative asset, and its value is derived by enough people believing it has some kind of value. You could argue that everything value is derived from that. But when you buy actual physical real estate, like in the province of real Ontario, right? Not
Real Ontario,
not
not
virtual
fake Ontario.
Ontario, right?
Yeah.
Right? It has intrinsic value. It has value. It'd
Right.
always have value. You'd be able to live in that house. You'd be able to rent it out. You'd be able to tear it down and just see it burn. Whatever it is, right, you want to do, you could do to it, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would always put my money in real estate, right, as opposed to virtual real estate. I don't even know if it's like, can you call it real estate at that point, or is it virtual estate?
Yeah, that's a good question because like you have to get into the world before you can get into your property. And like I was thinking about that. What happens if there was like um an EMP or a solar flare or something that kind of
Yeah.
like knocks us out of our
Yep.
real estate? Do we have like virtual insurance to provide us,
Mm,
against natural disasters that affect that universe? And I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, I question that, and I think you're right. It is speculative, and it's only worth what people are willing to, value it at. But I wouldn't buy virtual. I want to buy real property, man. There's still enough plots of land and ways to buy
yeah.
property here that you don't have to go to another universe that
Yeah.
doesn't exist to
Yeah.
buy.
And it's not like,
Um,
the emperor is not Mark Zuckerberg. It's like,
yeah, that's scary.
it's Justin Trudeau.
Yeah. Yee, man. What do you think about NFTs, non-fungible with tokens? Because
Um,
that's been in the news lately, and that's sort of virtual, but it's not like it's. Yeah, what do you think? What's your take?
I do feel like, um, NFTs, along with like digital currency, for example, they do have a place, right? Like, I don't believe Bitcoin itself has any value, but I am, in a weird way, a big believer in digital currency that's tied into the real world. So, for
Mm,
example, if you were to, for example, have a digital coin that's tied to, like, is backed by gold, right? And so me sending you something is actually me sending you gold. I am a big believer of all of that, just because it's much easier, safer, it's verified that, like, when I send you a digital, like, kind of token, that gives you a claim on that gold. So it's like the best of both worlds. It in itself, I don't think so. Like NFTs, these people who like make drawings and start selling NFTs, like, I don't. I mean, to be frank with you, one of the biggest positives that I've seen with NFTs is tax avoidance. There are
uh,
complicated. It gets a bit nuanced, but you can have regimes out there that can help you minimize your tax liability with NFTs. But it's just like art, right? It's like
right.
you
Yeah.
buy a
Yeah.
piece of art, and if you donate it, and it's been valued like 10 times more, you're actually kind of bringing down your bottom line. So in that sense, NFTs,
Do serve a purpose there. Yeah.
there's a purpose, and then you are kind of um, giving somebody the right to something, right? And it's traceable. So all of that stuff I believe in. I do think that that's all good. That's all, like, that's a huge progress, right? Because before, it's like, even in a lot of developing countries now, your land registries were all paper documents, right? So
Right. Yeah.
even in Ontario, I think it got digitized 2013. That's not long ago. That's like less than 10 years ago. Okay.
Well, man, like I'm doing, I do some stuff out in Calgary, right? And the land registry in Alberta is pretty manual. It's all paper,
Yeah.
It's not. It has. Yeah, the processing takes a long time. So yeah, the fact that Ontario's digitized it, um, yeah,
It
it's
it opens it up like to fraudulent stuff too. You see a lot of
right. Yeah,
cases, and I've seen this at least in the developing world and stuff, where you can transfer somebody's property, they don't even know it. It's no longer theirs, right?
they're living in it and they just don't know they don't own it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and you could do that here too potentially, but there's just more roadblocks if you know, like, all right, this person owned it, this person owned it, now only this person has access to release it, right?
Right. Have you seen anything like that happen, like under your watch,
I
or have you heard of it?
I mean, I've heard of not within Canada, but I've heard
Mm,
of things
yeah.
happening in other places where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, Canada, we have a good system in that, like, you always need a lawyer. Only lawyers have access to the registry. They're trying to minimize that access so not everybody can kind of jump in and change the properties and transfer it into somebody else's name. So that
Right.
is like, I agree with that in that it kind of minimizes the amount of hands and eyes and everything looking into it. That doesn't make it like foolproof, but it is like much. It's much further ahead. But at the same time, there is it's still kind of semi-manual because if I'm selling your property, for example, I have to look at your IDs, have to verify who you are, then you sign some documents, and then I can release you from property, and I know who's buying it, and that your buyer's lawyer is going to register them simultaneously, right?
Right. Right.
There's a manual jump between me verifying your ID and seeing that it's you, and that could be fraudulent. You could give me a fraudulent ID. It's my job to make sure I look at everything properly and all that stuff. But if you do give me a fraudulent ID and I don't catch it, okay, there is a possibility, like it could happen, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if you have like a wallet without, like, with that property on, and you have to give me permission, it no longer, like, that wallet's going to verify your ID, and then and you're going to transfer that ability to me, and then I can then transfer it after that. So that's, I feel like, a little more secure.
Mm,
But then
that makes sense. Yeah.
you do have, like, you hear about, like, the guy who threw away, I think, $300 million worth of Bitcoin in the
That
dump.
was me. That was me. No.
And he spent, I think,
Although I did lose a wallet with amount in it that I'm not too happy about.
yeah,
But that was in the early stages
yeah,
of Bitcoin, right? No one
yeah,
knew what was going to
yeah.
happen to it, and I was like, "Ah, what is this?" Didn't someone buy a pizza or something, and they gave like tons of Bitcoin too in the early stages? I think it was somewhere in New York. They gave like it worked out to what would be like hundreds of millions of dollars of value to buy pizza.
Oh man,
And I mean, it's one of those things now. Um, I heard Dogecoin.
yeah.
Dogecoin has been increasing. Now I haven't looked at it, but something to do with Elon Musk and his Starlink and his affinity for Dogecoin. But again, it's hard to say. There's a little bit of speculation and all that, but I can see where the security and the encryption can really come in handy,
Yeah.
especially more and more we're seeing questions come about on, well, I've got some digital currency. How can I use it to prove for proof of down payment? And banks are really still kind of not sure how to deal with that too.
Yeah.
And I think it'll take a while, but we'll start to see more and more of it.
I mean, it's speculative, right? Like, it's like, you're not. One day it's 41,000 or whatever it is, and it is pretty high today. But then the next day it's down. So how do you value something like that,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And something that's kind of fluctuating that much is not a good store of value, right?
that's
Like,
true. Yeah,
it's not something that and it's not really accepted widely in society for you to buy and sell things. It's not, still not there. If it was a viable contender, definitely the governments would ban it without a doubt. But right now it's not even like possibly a contender. Like, it's just, you know, like, hey, you want, like, at least before, right? Like, if you convince somebody for even a pizza to get like $100 million of Bitcoin, like what their value is today, I'm pretty sure they had a discussion. The guy's like, I don't know. And it's like, don't take it. Then it's like, even the
yeah,
guy who's taking it is thinking he just gave away a free pizza.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So
That's crazy. You know what has a good store value? Real estate.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
and gold, but real estate too.
I was talking to a client a little while ago, and they weren't sure if they wanted to purchase real estate. They had a pretty good down payment set aside. It was an inheritance from like 10 years ago, and they weren't sure. Should they just wait and see if there's going to be a correction? Should they get a rental property, or are they going to be priced out of the market? And it's interesting because it's one of those things where I've heard it years ago, and you probably have too, where it's the market's going to be corrected or due
Hmm.
for a market correction. Just wait it out. You'll get something cheap. I haven't seen it. Now I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if you've got one in your drawer behind you, but I doubt it.
Maybe.
Maybe. So um, the question is, should you jump into real estate now or do you wait? The thing I look at is, look, it's not in a bubble. Housing is a requirement for many of us, unless
Hmm.
you're living under, a bridge. But if you're not and you need a place to stay, you're either renting or you're buying. With real estate, if you've got $100,000 and you can qualify for a purchase of 500,000, you've just borrowed a ton of money, even at today's rate. If the interest rate goes up tomorrow, okay, it goes up a little bit, but look at the cost of borrowing compared to inflation. Why would you not take the bank's money? All of a sudden, you have appreciation on an asset that's worth 5 times your initial investment. Not only that, but you've got someone now, if it's a rental property, you have someone that's paying down your mortgage, right? Your principal and interest. So at the end of that term, you've chipped away at the original loan amount. You have the lift on the appreciation. Let's just say it stays as is. And yeah, that appreciation is on the total asset, not just on your
Yeah.
$100,000.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I had a statement I was looking at, and it was a short term GIC with an annual yield of 1%.
Oh
A
wow.
client had 300,000 sitting in it. And I'm just thinking, man, 300,000. We talked about this on one of our podcasts with inflation being over 5% last month.
Yeah, yeah, hold on. Okay, so if you've got 300,000, let's just do this math because I'm a
Okay.
mathematicals kind of guy. So let's say you got 500,000 sitting in.
Put this on the screen. I'm going to put it on the screen later. Just
Okay.
keep talking out loud.
Okay, so let's say I'm just doing math like on a calculator, so I don't know if I could push this onto a screen, but $500,000. Okay, so in a year, you're getting an interest rate of like 1.01%. Let's keep it like compounded like annually. Okay,
Sure.
so you have 500,000 times 1.01. You've made $5,000, or what you feel like is $5,000 on your income. Now, with that 5,000, if your interest rate is 5%, then you're taking that 505,000 and you're dividing by 1.05. So the value of your investment is 400.
So that 5% is, you're talking inflation, the
Inflation.
rate of
Yeah,
inflation.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're if it's an annualized rate of 5%, you actually drop almost $20,000 in value. So that's worth 480,000. That's a significant amount of money, but people don't see that, right? So they're like, "Oh my god,
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have 505,000." But
They
in
think they
real,
protected
yeah,
the
yeah,
the underlying asset or the underlying
yeah,
value of what it is, but it's not worth it. That's crazy, man.
like
And it's a
you're paying a
conversation, I think.
tax. You're paying a
Yeah.
tax every year of 20 grand. That's insane. That is
Yeah.
insane. Like, how long does it take for that to like wipe out, man? So, I mean, in that current climate, I feel like the real estate is a minimum. And when I say minimum, you can get into highly speculative assets. You can get into the stock market. You can get into Bitcoin. You can get into venture capital, private equity, all this other stuff, right? Hedge funds, whatever nonsense, right? You want to go and you can invest in whatever you want, right? But what is what you have to think about is what is the least risky asset class that will at a minimum protect the value of your assets, right? So that your purchasing power remains the same. I'm not looking for accumulation either, right? Because a lot of people, like when they're looking to retire, they need to actually have it increase over time so that they can.
Yeah.
Right? I'm talking about just maintaining, right? And I
Yeah.
feel the most risk averse where you'd at least maintain is real estate. No bonds is going to help you, right? No government bonds. What's the government bond rate? Like 1%, 2%? Um, hold on. I think
Good
I
question.
got some.
Commercial bond yields have dropped to 1.94
Yeah. Okay.
yesterday,
So yeah.
down 13 points. Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that. So here's a story that Dan would like to share with everyone. So a few years ago, I actually had an opportunity to buy some land up in the Muskokas, and it wasn't a huge parcel or anything, but I picked it up, and instead of investing it in maybe some other types of investments out there, I grabbed a parcel of land, and that parcel is worth at least 10 times what I paid for it. And
Oh wow.
I didn't do anything. The property taxes on vacant land is, I think I pay about $240 annually on it, but it's
Yeah.
sitting there and the value's there. There's a heck of a lot more value than
Yeah.
there was when I bought it. Right. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
But
So,
that is also like the caveat to that is you do need to have that cash on hand and you kind of hold it, right?
right.
Because
Yeah.
it's not like
Yeah.
that property for you is cash flowing now.
It's not.
Yeah,
No.
so you need to be able
Yeah.
to hold it. All like it is a wise investment. Like I feel like the best investments are undeveloped land that is near, um, like just a
Mhm.
growth area because that will appreciate the most because there isn't that much value to it right now, but it is close to the surrounding area is developed.
Someone's gonna want it
Yeah,
down the road
yeah,
when they need to develop it, and it's a great plan. And you're right. Like if you don't have a way where it's generating income every month, and it's just like a wait and hold, obviously take that into consideration when you're
yeah,
deciding whether or not that's something you want to pay into. But I'll tell you, like a couple $100, that's what 2 or 3
yeah,
cell phone bills.
yeah,
It is what
yeah.
it
No,
is.
if you can hold it, definitely. That's like the so. Well, it's the way to go.
Yeah. Take that NFT. Take that virtual metaverse
Mark Zuckerberg,
land.
take it.
Take it. Yeah, some of his commercials are just, or not commercial. Yeah, commercials, infomercials, interstitials. They're just weird.
Yeah,
They just I'm pretty sure he's an alien.
there was a there's a video on Instagram, man, or where did I see this? Where it's like Mark Zuckerberg proves that he's not human, right? And then he's like in front of an audience, he goes, "You're human, and I was a human. I mean, I am a human." He's like, "I'm talking about myself like in past tense." I'm like,
Did he
"What
actually
the?"
say
Yeah,
that?
he did.
Oh man,
I was just like, "What the heck is going
that,
on here?"
that's cool. We're gonna find that. I'm gonna splice that into this video. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, and I think what we'll do is we'll circle back because obviously at the time of this taping, it hasn't come out yet, the announcement on the rate increase.
Yeah.
But you and I will have some conversations on where we go after that. And speaking of conversations, we've got a few other guests lined up. We won't release them now, but stay tuned. And yeah, appreciate everyone tuning in to our Tuesday talks here, especially you, Joe Rogan. I know you're watching. Yeah.
Take care,
I was going to
everyone.
say something about
Oh,
no. Before we end, I
okay.
was going to say something
Backtrack.
about Rogan.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 more minutes. So getting back to the NFTs, I remember I was watching a video, Joe Rogan podcast, where someone had come on and he did an NFT for Rogan, but Rogan was so like new to understand, he couldn't really understand the concept of it, that the guy actually brought a physical NFT. But at that point, is it an is it a physical NFT, or is it just art?
Uh,
Because
yeah.
it's custom made and it's for you. Is that art? I don't know.
Yeah. I have
Now,
no
as we
idea.
get off this call, I'm going to be sitting here contemplating this until our next Tuesday talk. So
Yeah.
thanks, Harris, again for setting this up, and guys, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you on the next one.
Take care, everyone.
Okay, see ya.